President, and ladies and gentlemen, and for any of you from the Sai community, Sairam. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you today on a topic of some relevance, especially in today's world of seeming intolerance between religious and cultural groups worldwide. Air conditioning. You know, it seems apt to speak on this topic of what Mahatma Gandhi held as a guiding principle, Sarva Dharma Samanatva, that is the equality of religions. In this capital of this great country of Canada, it seems even more apt to be able to speak so. This country, for the better part, has great values. It respects diversity and supports efforts to be a model of such. Before continuing, I need to add a small caveat in that this will not be an academic presentation. Actually leaning more toward the anecdotal. My credentials do not include being an expert on Gandhi's life and his teachings. Nevertheless, and along with many others of my spiritual heroes, some of whom I will reference, what he stood for, what Gandhi modeled in his life, and how he went about it, they have served as an inspiration to me and how this body-mind complex has moved through life. If you walk into the outer foyer of the Sai Baba Center of Toronto and you look up on the wall, you will find several colorful placards that all proclaim the same thing in differing words, taken from scriptures and writings of many of the great faith traditions of the world, from Hinduism. Do not do to others that would cause pain to you, taken from the Mahabharata. From Buddhism. Treat not others in ways that you yourself will find hurtful, taken from the Udana Varga, a collection of sayings, aphorisms, and poetic verses attributed to the Buddha and his disciples. From Judaism, what is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. And that is from the great Rabbi Hillel, as recorded in the Talmud Shabbat, or the Babylonian Talmud. And Hillel also went on to say, words to the effect, this is the whole of the Torah, the rest is commentary. From Islam, not one of you truly believes until you wish for others what you wish for yourself. That's from the Prophet Muhammad, as quoted in the Hadith, which contains sayings of the Prophet. From Christianity, in everything do unto others as you would have them do unto you. From the Gospel of Matthew. From Zoroastrianism, do not do unto others whatever is injurious to yourself. Taken from the Shayas Nashayas, a text on religious customs. Of course, what I'm referring to is the Golden Rule, versions of which can be found in all of the world's great religions or religious traditions. Those terms I will use interchangeably with faiths, faith, and faith traditions. It is easily seen that these wisdom traditions, formalized as religions, express deep commonalities, powerful foundational values that have evolved within human societies throughout the world, while not necessarily practiced by all in the world's societies. These values, nonetheless, are held up as ideals to emulate and have, over the millennia and centuries, guided guided the ethical development of human societies to where, seemingly and hopefully, the pursuit of peace makes more sense to much of humankind than the waging of war. Little by little, in fits and starts, as knowledge and the movements between peoples has increased, humankind is all too slowly becoming aware of this trajectory towards some form of global consciousness. The opening of the potential to think globally and act locally, as E.F. Schumacher so wisely suggested. Before continuing further, let's provide some context regarding relations between religions. I will be relying significantly on the writings of Huston Smith, whom many have regarded as the world's foremost commentator on comparative religion. Smith was a personal hero in the eyes of one of my mentors and guides, someone who became a very good friend, the late Dr. Darrell Bryant, may he rest in peace, who was Dean of Religious Studies at the University of Waterloo when I attended there. Smith described three basic viewpoints regarding the relations between religions. Viewpoint number one, that one religion is superior to others. That is still a dominant viewpoint that is very gradually gaining less and less traction as the world's peoples get to know one another. Viewpoint number two, all religions are basically alike, which, while appealing to the human desire for togetherness, becomes problematic when points of dogma, that which is deemed essential and that which is non-negotiable, when those come into the discussion. And viewpoint number three, acknowledging differences within various religions without pronouncing on their worth. In other words, no ranking system. It is in the second and third of these viewpoints that some common ground begins to emerge. Smith then goes on to ask, what is the collective wisdom that endures? Where are religions similar or equal in their messaging? He writes that the answers are found in the realms of ethics, virtues, and vision, to which I will add values. To expand somewhat. Ethics enjoin us to avoid stealing, lying, adultery, killing, and so on. I think it is safe to say, as Gandhi did, that these values, these guidelines are found within all the world's great religious traditions. Of virtues, the three that Smith outlines are humility, which is not self-abasement, rather seeing oneself as one among many, but not more than any other. Another is charity, which is basically to regard one's neighbor as fully equal to oneself. And another is veracity, truth, which is more than telling the truth, but the ability to see things as they are, and in harmony with that understanding to live authentically. To acquire these virtues requires one to overcome obstacles such as greed, hatred, and delusion, replacing them with selflessness, which derives from humility, compassion, which is a form of charity, and seeing things in their suchness, or as they are, which is veracity, truth, or right view, as the Buddhists would say. Vision on the ultimate character of things, of ultimate reality, is the third of these areas of collective wisdom, of equal messaging, along with ethics and virtues. Smith makes 3 points here. Religions help to integrate our fragmented view of life, to see the whole picture. Self-interest distorts our perceptions. The world's faiths, its religions, the wisdom traditions, are humankind's most most serious and sustained attempt to bring meaning to the whole, to be at one with. The second point of vision is that reality's worth is better than our own sensibilities. The immensity of the human self as envisioned by the world's religions is awesome. And reality is steeped in mystery, that for which the human mind has no solution. We stand in wonder. To conclude this primer, I'll sum up in Smith's own words. Things are more integrated than they seem. They are better than they seem. And they are more mysterious than they seem. Something like this emerges as the highest common denominator of the wisdom traditions. When we add to this the baseline they establish for ethical behavior and their account of the human virtues, one wonders if a wiser platform has ever been conceived. End of quote. With such understanding, it becomes possible to think in terms of the equality of religions as a powerful unifying principle in the family of mankind. I spoke earlier of humanity slowly evolving towards a global consciousness. In the modern era, Gandhi stands out as a leader who understood the dynamics of this coming together of humankind, and very much to the point, the dynamics which are driving it. He rightly understood that religion, faith, has always been one of the main influences, if not the main influence, on human behavior and thought. And that would be in the long term. He also saw, through his own deep inquiries into religious tenets and philosophy, that the world's religions were more equal than not in many ways, which, if understood properly, could bring harmony and peace to human societies rather than driving them apart, which is something that often happens when religion is used as a wedge to justify aggression. And the tendency toward that is generally driven by that other principal influence on human societies, fear, the real or perceived need for survival and security. This concept of bringing harmony and peace to human societies is powerful. It's very, very powerful. It's powerful enough that many of these same societies have been trying to do so for millennia. Now, referencing back to Smith and many others, another area that all religions have in common, besides all of them being a uniquely human activity, is that they offer a way to illumination to their adherents, an appreciation of that which is greater than ordinary human thought. The awe of the numinous, of the mysterious workings of powers greater than themselves is a dynamic that lives at the core of every religion. This common spiritual ground of being, in my opinion, deeply felt, or at least intuited by anyone with a spiritual outlook, which still remains the case for the vast majority of humanity. What becomes problematic is that often the spiritual realities, the foundational visions upon which the world's religions are formulated, are lost in the dogmatic teachings and minutiae of the organizational rules and trappings of the same institutions that have been built around the original transcendental vision. I am reminded here of a passage from a novel based on the life of St. Francis of Assisi, which was authored by the Nobel Literature laureate, the Greek writer, Nikos Kazantzakis. He is one of my spiritual heroes. I strongly recommend his books. Late in the book, there is a scene in which Brother Elias, one of Francis' closest disciples, and who was tasked with organizing the new order of Franciscan monks, says to Francis, he says words to the effect of, "Francis, you're getting in the way." Francis, immersed in his mystical union with all of reality, especially the natural world, was out of sync with Brother Elias's organizational and administrative instincts on how to run a tight ship. Clearly, they were still trying to find the right balance between the original transcendental vision of Francis and the organizational institution built to support and further that vision. It's a perennial problem. With the foregoing caveat in mind, let's have a look at what Gandhi meant by equality of religions or faith traditions. Regarding religions, if you look at primarily at dogma, which by the way, if you spell it backwards, reads "am God." Make of that what you like. It can be very difficult to see where these traditions could be thought of as equal if you rely on dogma. If you focus instead on the transcendental core of each of these faiths, the universal spiritual, human, and ethical values enjoined on their followers, and quite critically, who is doing the perceiving, the eye of the beholder, as it were, then common ground can quickly be found and understood. Gandhi's personal faith was centered in the Vedanta philosophy of Hinduism, which advocates for the essential spiritual unity of all mankind. As he saw it, in his own words, Hinduism was all-inclusive. It is not anti-Muslim, anti-Christian, or anti-other religion, but it is pro-Muslim, pro-Christianity, and pro-every other living faith in the world. End of quote. Gandhi was convinced of the relative truth of all religions, stating, "I have come to the conclusion that one, all religions are true. All religions have some error in them. All religions are almost as dear to me as my own Hinduism. My own veneration for other faiths is the same as that for my own faith. Therefore, no thought of conversion is possible." End of quote. Instead, Gandhi professed that individuals should become better practitioners of their own religion rather than adopt a new one. This ecumenical viewpoint was grounded in Gandhi's faith in the Jain doctrine of relative pluralism, which posits that any reality can be evaluated from different points of view, which each estimate is true in itself, but not expressing the whole truth. Thus, Gandhi learned to judge a Muslim from his own perspective, a Christian from his, and so on. This theory of religious pluralism was a keystone of Gandhi's philosophy. In my own experience, I am guided by the teachings of many spiritual masters, chief among whom is my own guru, Sathya Sai Baba. If you were to survey his discourses again and again, you will find him speaking of the essential unity of all faiths, and generally expanding on that, saying it is not necessary to abandon your own faith in order to believe in his teachings, especially since he would always go on to say, what Gandhi would understand from the Advaita or non-dual viewpoint of the Vedanta that he embraced, that essentially all of creation, all of phenomena is equal, and that you and I are of one source in the most fundamental sense. Sai Baba says there is only one religion, the religion of love. Gandhi famously said, "My religion teaches me to love all equally." Sai Baba encourages those who listen to expand their consciousness, to broaden their vision, so as to be able to encompass all viewpoints. Does this not echo Gandhi, who said that the essence of all religions is one, only their approaches are different? Sai Baba made sure that the organization that arose in his name was to be considered a spiritual organization, not a religious one. The symbol of the organization, the Sarva Dharma symbol, shows a large lotus flower. Within the petals of each are symbols of the major religions of India, such as the cross of Christianity, Om of Hinduism, the star and crescent of Islam, the fire of Zoroastrianism, the wheel of Buddha, and in the Western version, the inclusion of the Star of David. It is meant to show the unity of all faiths, not just the acceptance of or tolerance thereof. Step back, look at that. Sarva Dharma. Sarva Dharma Samanatma, the equality of religions. To recapitulate somewhat, mutual respect for all religions, equal vision and understanding, if you wish, was central to Gandhi's philosophy and how he acted in the world. It was grounded in the belief that all major religions find common ground in ethics, morality, and the pursuit of truth and dharma, which is right understanding, right living, and right action in the world. Gandhi advocated strongly for communal harmony between all the faith groups in India, stressing peaceful coexistence and interfaith unity. If you demanded respect for your religion, then you should be prepared to offer the same for another's. He rejected any viewpoint that suggested the superiority of any religion, certainly any attempts at conversion. Rather, he suggested one should focus on individual improvement, especially the practice of their own religion, and deepening their understanding of it. Spiritual studies being one way to further that. Spiritual growth, in Gandhi's eyes, helped to improve one's way of life and character, regardless of spiritual affiliation. Gandhi read the scriptures from different religions, such as the Quran, the Bible, and the Bhagavad Gita. He held regular faith meetings to which he would invite practitioners of other faith traditions, making sure to include readings and hymns from those traditions. In doing so, Gandhi showed respect for religious pluralism, inclusivity, and the promotion of interfaith harmony, principles that were integral to his activism. One example of his activism is that during the communal violence in India as partition loomed, Gandhi, and at considerable risk, walked barefoot through Hindu and Muslim communities. He was urging them to choose peaceful coexistence. His fast to encourage the same, besides revealing a very deep veneration that he was held in, demonstrated his ironclad commitment to religious equality and social harmony. These actions and beliefs, and Gandhi's stance on nonviolence, inspired other global figures over the years to adopt the principles of unity in diversity. The Reverend Martin Luther King promoted racial and cultural harmony through the civil rights movement. Emulating Gandhi, King taught us to judge people on their character, not their race, culture, or religion. Nelson Mandela, modeling and preaching that respect for diversity could heal deep rifts within society, he worked to unite a South Africa that was divided by race and religion. In this day and age of global connectedness, many others are working to uphold the principles of Sarva Dharma Samanatma, the equality of faiths. In a world where cultural and religious conflict has become endemic. One movement that I have been made aware of is the Interfaith Youth Corps, which encourages young people from different religions to collaborate on service projects, which shows that diversity can be a source of strength. Another very similar one is Children's International Summer Villages, otherwise known as CISV, in which delegates of 11-year-old children from several countries, all old enough to know something of the world, but still children, they come together with an adult counselor supporting each group for a month at a location within a participating country, of which there are 70 worldwide. CISV was founded in 1947 on the belief that peace is possible through building friendship and mutual understanding and starting with the children. Young participants are helped to develop their full potential as future leaders and active citizens to make a difference in their communities and the world while building global friendships and networks that will last them a lifetime. During their stay in these villages, each child is billeted by a local family for a couple of days so that they can learn something of another culture. Each national delegation of children presents something of their own culture to the assembled groups. I know something of this because our middle child attended a CISV village in Guatemala in the mid-1980s. There were at least 15 such villages worldwide that year. Another well-known interfaith forum is the Parliament of World Religions, where delegates from various faiths engage in meaningful dialogue to promote unity. The first such parliament was in 1893 in Chicago. The second, 100 years later, also in Chicago. And then there are several, or have been several subsequent parliaments, including one in Toronto, that have taken place in various countries since. Someone I came to know well, the late Dr. Brother Wayne Teasdale, was one of the organizers of the 1993 Parliament. Brother Teasdale, who refers to himself as an interreligious monk, authored The Mystic Heart, a book I highly recommend. In it, he talks of interspirituality, a term he coined, and drawing on the mystical core of the world's faith traditions, speaks of the power of a universal spirituality, and he lists 8 practical elements: solidarity with all life, moral capacity, non-violence, self-knowledge, selfless service, simplicity of lifestyle, daily practice, and serving as a prophetic witness in the causes of justice, peace, and protecting creation. All of these elements can be found in the foundational values of the world's major religions. Teasdale may as well have been describing the vision, understanding, and mission of Mahatma Gandhi. Universal spirituality, sarva dharma samanatva, the equality of religions. My interfaith involvements have been primarily within Christian, Buddhist, Vedanta, and multi-faith milieus. The Sai Baba organization, which I referenced already, while mostly garbed in the Hindu tradition, lives up to its commitment to be a spiritual organization and a religious one. If you went to his ashram in India, you would not be surprised to see practitioners of many faiths in attendance. Some of the principal feast days of other religions are regularly celebrated there. This is also true of Gandhi and his ashram. More tellingly, the curriculums of the schools set up in Sai Baba's name, as well as the spiritual education program that provide for its children and youth, namely education in human values, are focused on building character through the inculcation of universal human values, such as love, truth, peace, right conduct, and nonviolence. Additionally, the children in these programs are taught about and encouraged to interact with the various faith traditions found worldwide. So you see the sentiments, the principles that Gandhi held dear and modeled in his own life can, in today's world, be found in the lives of many leaders and forward-looking organizations. As well, they can be certainly discovered in the teachings and practices of many spiritual masters of different faiths from around the world. Though my understanding and involvement with some of these is limited, I nonetheless feel blessed to have had some exposure to a few of these teachers, either directly or through being exposed to their teachings. Allow me to expand on that, hopefully showing that there is much out in the world in the way of individuals and organizations that are actively incorporating the ideals of Sarmadharma, Samanatva in what they do and in what they believe. First, a strong lesson in the values of compassion, courage, sacrifice, and trust. I was born immediately following the Second World War in the Netherlands. I feel it worthwhile, almost a sacred duty of acknowledgement, to mention that though there was widespread starvation throughout the country, towards the end of that war, many tens of thousands actually died for lack of food, of starvation, and at some sacrifice to our own family, while trusting in her own faith, my mother personally kept alive the family who lived next to us. That was throughout the last year of that war that is known as the Hunger Winter in the Netherlands. Even though we had little, every day my mother prepared and sent over a pot of salted, which is a traditional, very quite hearty Dutch dish of one or more vegetables cooked together and then mashed. I add this to give you some idea, some example of the values that I grew up with. As is generally the case in life, my mother, bless her soul, was my first guru. Her sense of responsibility to community was very strong, as were her spiritual values, traits that Gandhi modeled throughout his entire life. I started to come of age as a teenager, when my strong interest in the wider world expanded beyond what the worlds of science and technology had to offer. In high school, I gravitated to others interested in social justice issues. I also abandoned my Catholic faith for some time. Eschewing higher studies, I ventured out into the world. After many travels, involvements in the civil rights and anti-Vietnam War movements, and considerable troubles resulting from those involvements, I was reintroduced to my spirituality through a relationship with a woman whose father was a direct disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda, the famous author of Autobiography of a Yogi. In that seminal book, Swami Yogananda speaks very highly of his meetings with Gandhi, as well as his great admiration of Christianity and its teachings. The book stuck with me. The girl didn't. I ended up in the coastal community of Big Sur, California, where I was trained in the deep bodywork practices that I was able to earn a livelihood from. My teacher was a disciple of Sathya Sai Baba. The Esalen Institute, where I did my training, was a crossroads of ideas and practices from some of the greatest teachers in the world in diverse fields such as spirituality, political theory, alternative healing modalities, and psychology, but to name a few. It was considered the birthplace of what became known as the human potential movement. What luck to land in a place like that. At the same time, I became very involved with the Benedictine monastery of mostly hermit monks, among whom was Brother David Steindl-Rast, who was famous throughout the world for his writings and activities in the world of interfaith dialogue. Brother David, he became the spiritual teacher in residence at the Esalen Institute for a few years, where in addition to he becoming my mentor, we became friends. Brother David's principal spiritual practice is gratefulness. I encourage you to look up his name, David Steindl-Rast, or just go to gratefulness.org. After my first visit to see Sathya Sai Baba, I felt strongly guided to revisit my Catholic roots. I read deeply into Catholic spirituality, especially the mystical tradition, but also had a significant involvement with a local Catholic community. Simultaneously, I became interested in Buddhist teachings and philosophy, and all the while remaining true to my root guru. Through these involvements, I was uplifted by the writings and teachings of Thomas Merton, especially his later accounts of his engagement with Buddhist teachings and Buddhist masters, such as the Dalai Lama. When I eventually returned to university, those teachings and involvements led to a brief correspondence with His Holiness, who has also remained as one of my great spiritual teachers. In the spirit of Gandhi, His Holiness the Dalai Lama has championed interfaith dialogue and spiritual activism. I highly recommend his book, Towards a True Kinship of Faiths, within which he explores how differences between religions can be appreciated without serving as sources of conflict, how all faith traditions turn to compassion as a guiding principle towards living a good life, how through meaningful dialogue, common ground and purpose can be found. Besides the aforementioned Parliament of World Religions, there have been many interfaith initiatives that I find inspiring. These include some of the Dalai Lama's Mind Life conferences. Another was the Gethsemane Encounter, which was a meeting of Christian and Buddhist leaders and thinkers at Thomas Merton's monastery. Yet others were several conferences at Naropa University in Colorado that brought together Christians and Buddhists in interfaith dialogue. An ongoing initiative. See, there's a lot out there, a lot that has been going on. Another ongoing initiative that I was involved with for 13 years was a quarterly newsletter published by the late scholarly couple, Dr. James Somerville and Dr. Beatrice Bruto, the latter of whom a multi-faith website, Spirituality and Practice, regarded as one of the 100 most influential spiritual teachers of our times. It provided a forum for its subscribers to engage in interfaith dialogue, especially as it pertained to contemplative spirituality. It was there that I first encountered Brother Wayne Teasdale. And one more. For 43 years, I have been involved with an annual silent retreat, acting as its principal logistics coordinator. We are mostly devotees and followers of the teachings of Sathya Sai Baba. We meet at a Buddhist retreat center. Our program is modeled on the workings of Catholic monasteries, striving for a balance of study, prayer, and work, not to mention lots of individual time just to be in silent contemplation. Besides the singing of bhajans, the recitation of mantras, and formal meditation, our liturgies include readings from various spiritual traditions and discourses prepared by our members, thus receiving food for thought and contemplation. It is safe to say that the life teachings and example of Gandhi often found their way into these offerings. And my final example of vibrant interfaith initiative is the organization Saging International, which was founded by Rabbi Zalman Chakra Shalomi as a response to his own deep explorations of what it is to be an elder in the world. It is but one of several groups dedicated to the support and furthering of the conscious aging movement. There is actually such a thing. I am a certified saging leader, having done some training and facilitating programming for elders to help them thrive in the second half of life through a deeper exploration of what it is to be a spiritually attuned elder in the world. This is achieved through expanding elder consciousness, life review, repairing relationships and forgiveness, embracing one's mortality, and leaving a legacy of wisdom, all done within a framework that includes much of the collective wisdom of the world's faith traditions. This organization, which has members from a variety of backgrounds, faiths, and cultural traditions, operates worldwide, demonstrating how unity and diversity can and does work, while empowering those of us with a good number of years of life experience to rediscover and share our hard-won insights and wisdom. Gandhi stands as a powerful example of how one person, through a life dedicated to fostering peace and harmony between all cultures and faith traditions, can carry forward these goals to a satisfactory conclusion. His core belief in Sathya Sai Baba, the equality of religions, if well understood and artfully applied, can and does lead to a more peaceful, inclusive world, which recognizes the common humanity that underlies differing faiths. Keep in mind, Gandhi famously stated, the essence of all religions is one, only their approaches are different. Putting this principle into practice enables us to overcome division, celebrate unity, and build bridges in our diverse societies. The key to that is you and I. It is only through a concerted individual effort to embrace these ideals, combined with collective action on them, that substantial progress to realizing their effectiveness can be made. Remember Gandhi's words, be the change that you wish to see in the world. I invite you to do